Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about Stanley Bevels, specifically the thumb screws that Stanley used at different points in their manufacture. Now these obviously are not those. These are the lever locking bevels, which were produced from 1877 to around 1960. So they had a pretty good long run, about 90 years. And these are by far the most common because they were the most produced. But before 1877, Stanley used Wingnuts, and then after about 1960, they also went back to Wingnuts. And there's also a third type of wingnut, which we'll get to. So let's start with the first wingnuts. So these are Stanley Bevels, dating from 1857, when Stanley first introduced them, until, as I said, 1877, when they patented the lever and introduced those. And from that time period, we have two different styles of thumb screw, referred to as a flared and a straight. And you can just see the difference on the body here. This has sort of a bell shape that almost has like a washer built into the body of the thumb screw. You can see there. And the other is just straight, has no flare at the bottom. Otherwise, the thumb screws are very similar. There were other manufacturers that used a similar thumb screw. But the key to a Stanley is that these screws were used to hold on the top plates, and that these screws are down below. They're not even with the thumb screw. They are down below. That's the major key there. So this is the first type of thumb screw that Stanley used. So let's move to after they stopped using the levers, which was, like I said, around 1960, give or take. And that's when quality started decreasing. We lose the rosewood, we go to hardwoods, maple, beech, and these fairly standard wingnuts that we begin to see. At first they were using brass, nice thick solid ones. Then they moved to steel, and then they moved to sort of this cast, has the divots on the wings, not as high quality metal. So the quality continued to decline over the next 20 to 30 years before they completely phased out wood-handled bevels altogether. And I should state that Stanley only ever had one model of wood-handled bevel. When they introduced their numbering system in 1888, it was known as the 25, the number 25. And they changed some. It became the 25 TB later on in the 60s. And obviously before 1888, it didn't have a model number, but they only ever offered one wood-handled bevel at a time. So they're essentially all some variation of the Model 25, sorry. So we've covered the before the lever, and then the after the lever. So what's the third type that I alluded to? Well, that would be these. So once the lever was introduced in 1877, for the next 30 years, all the way until the 1907 catalog, Stanley advertised in a little footnote that wingnuts could be provided at no extra charge if so desired. Obviously it was enough of a demand that people liked this style and did not like the new lever style that they wanted to continue offering that as an option. And so they made these, and these are very distinct. You can see that it, rotate that one. It's got nice little round wings, and the big key is that the threading, for threading on the bolt, continues up the wing, and you can very clearly see that here. And so these are very distinct, and they're not very common at all, because they had to be special ordered. And honestly, the lever is really far superior to a wingnut. The wingnuts don't allow the bevels to lay flat, so I don't think many of these were ordered. So they're not that common. If you want to be absolutely sure that the wingnut that you have is this Stanley Special Order wingnut, the way you can know for sure, so here's one. Like I said, the big visual kickoff is that the threading continues up the wing nut. I know of no other bevel wing nuts that do that. But the key is on the underside. If you remove it, you'll see that it's not just flat. It's not just a simple wing nut tightening down. It has this cylinder sticking out, which is exactly the same as on the lever. And actually, these are interchangeable. It doesn't. There's no. You can pull off the wing nut and you can put on a lever. And the reason for that is because the design, the hole that the bolt goes through is not the same size as the bolt. There's extra space, which is where that cylinder fits down into. And so when you're torquing on the lever or on the wing nut, you're not moving the bolt and hollowing out the hole. The lever is actually riding on the body itself. It's actually a great design to make sure that these last a long time, and they do. So there we have it. We have our 3 styles of wing nut that you can find on Stanley Bevels, and hopefully you found this informative and helpful. You can check out the full bevel type study on my website, chapticowood.com. I'll link it in the comments, and thanks for watching.